Okay. Happy New Year to everyone. This is our first meeting in this year. We have a couple items on the agenda. Let's get started with the agenda items. The first one on the agenda, we have testing components on ARM. So is Zach on the call?
Yeah, I'm here. I had hoped that we were going to get Cyprian from ENEA about this. This is related, not necessarily directly to uh, the um, the surge work we're doing. There's some other work being done in the Akrano community, which Akrano is a deployment method for SIBA and Volta to try to get SIBA running on ARM. There's some discussion um, of how to make that happen. One is trying to get it to run under kind Volta. That's what Cyprian has been working on currently, which involves doing a bunch of rebuilds of some of our images. What I wanted to bring up with this group was the testing process. So what we're thinking is that the we're thinking that periodic testing of artifacts that are released, so running the periodic sanity tests is something that we'd want to do on both branches. But then for gating tests, so actually where we build a container and then run tests on it, we could do that on both AMD64 and AR64, so conventional and ARM platforms as gating tests. But because people don't have access to most people don't have access to ARM hardware, the general thought was that we wouldn't gate tests on ARM because a developer would not have a recourse to be able to debug if there was a failure. So just throwing that out there, if you start seeing jobs that come up that are doing this, I think we're just going to start doing periodic tests. So the ARM process might be is probably more likely to be broken if there's something that's incompatible. But I just really wanted to do that to inform the community of what's going on in that way. If you see new jobs that and are wondering why something's failing.
Okay, thanks. Thanks, Zach. So, question. So, are you going to help them create these jobs?
Yeah, that's correct. We're still working to get a working version of the EC2 executor AMI images. That's sort of the first step, and then uh, kind Volta support, and then after kind Volta support, we're going to try to get the images built for ARM, and then after the images are built, we'll start doing periodic tests. So that's the general flow, I think, of where this is going.
Okay, so how many people are working on this?
Right now, I'm working very slightly on this. Cyprian Barbu at ENEA is the primary person working on it.
Okay.
So I'm not sure time frame of this. A lot of this is going to also be related to some of the updates that we need to do for Python 3 support and other things in the test environment,
Okay.
which is also coming down the pipe. I don't think that's going to be as big of an issue. It's Robot supports Python 3, and at most we'll have some maybe some additional changes for compatibility, but I don't see that as being a really huge issue. I've done a lot of Python 3 porting lately, so I can handle most of that.
Okay. Okay. Thanks, Zach. So, what's the priority on this item?
Um, uh, it's not on the, it's not within the surge, so it's
Mhm.
low priority for surge people.
Okay. All right. So, and then the jobs that you're going to create would those be on the Jenkins verify
Yeah, they would
filter?
be, but they're going to be. I'll have them tagged as being architectures with an architecture name on them.
Mm, okay. Yeah, maybe at some point of time down the line, maybe Cyprian or you could just give us an overview when some work is done on that. So
Okay.
that'll be good.
Okay, sounds good.
Okay, any questions for Zach? All right, moving on. Yeah, status updates. Maybe today we might not go over every person and talk about the stories, but I noticed that before the holidays, during the holidays, there have been multiple patch sets that were available. I mean, that were released for the Volta system test, and I think most of them are pending except one which we got them merged. I think our first priority is to get these reviewed as soon as possible and then merge them so that we have more number of tests going on to these master branches. And I also see several in progress, and I am hoping that these are they we do have the patches. If not, if there are any other questions in specific to any of these in progress stories, you can just bring them up now.
Yeah, hi Sujitra, Suraj here.
Hey, Suraj.
Yeah, I just have one that small question which I already asked on Slack. I think just to remind that 2054 one, validating our technology profiles.
Yes.
Yeah,
Okay.
that is it. I don't have anything else. We can wait for some time. Then I can, if otherwise, I will start with another Jira. We can once I get the more information about it.
Okay, sure. I'll get to that question as soon as possible. Probably tomorrow I should be able to answer. And I think you have another patch that's pending to be reviewed, right? Did you already create a story for the enhancement of the test?
Yeah, that is 2432. So I have submitted the patch for it. So whenever you get a time, we can review and go ahead.
Okay, 2432. I don't see this on the list. Probably, can you just make sure the tagging is Volta 2.3?
Okay, I'll make the 2.3. I think that tagging I missed there.
All
Yeah, I'll do it.
right. Okay, thanks, Suraj.
Thank you.
Okay, any other questions from Atran or LTTS? Okay, I hope everyone has a task to take up, but if not, there are more tasks here below this list. Please look at those and then start taking the tasks. And then our goal is to put as many or as many test cases as possible into the master branch. And currently, uh, since we are talking about the test cases, I just quickly wanted to show you guys something. So if you notice that on this page, we have Jenkins jobs that are running for master and also for released images. And for released images, whatever test cases that we had automated before the holidays, which were 5 of those that are running the core functional tests. And there are other tests that are running on a different job, but these are the main important tests that we have those running. And all other new tests that we are going to write would be running on the master. And so the latest one that we added is going to the master. And for that, we have a tagging in place, and all the older test cases have been tagged with released on them. So whenever you see those released, please leave them as is, and those do not apply to any new test cases that we are writing going forward. And just follow the regular process of having like functional and the test case ID or the Volta Jira ticket that we have been putting until now. So that's just for your information. Okay, any other questions before we move forward? Questions on Jira tickets, in progress items? All right, moving on to the pod status. One update is that we are preparing some configurations for the Infosys pod and also, I believe, for the Berlin pod as well. Andy, you can correct me. For the Infosys pod, I have prepared the configurations and there were some questions that I reached out to Infosys. Thanks for your responses. I saw them today. And our goal is to connect the Infosys pod by end of this week so that we can start building the like the QA pods that we have. We are targeting to build the Infosys pod, build and also test nightly. And the pod should be definitely available to you guys in the morning Infosys time so that you can do more development and then testing on the pod itself. I think right now we have all the details that I needed. It's just that we have to check in these files and then start testing on those. Start testing from through Jenkins. That's the update on Infosys pod. Andy, do you have any more information or questions regarding the Berlin pod? Any updates?
No, I don't have any updates there.
Okay.
So Suchitra, I asked Andrea, who's going to be in Berlin, to join this call.
Hi, everybody.
Hey, Andrea.
So one of the questions about the Berlin pod, and I think this might be a structural question. So historically, we've been keeping all of the pod details in the pod configs repo, and I know this was brought up with, I know Andy brought this up, and I'm sort of concurring with him that right now we have pod config, which is sort of specific to those pods, or specific to each pod. We have the Voltha test repo, or the Voltha system test repo, which has the test definitions, and then we have the jobs that run them in the CI management repo. I think that there's definitely value in separating the CI management repo, which is the how Jenkins understands the jobs, and the Volta system test repo. But I'm wondering, is it a good idea to have the pod configs repo be separate when those that config could just maybe live on the individual pods themselves, maybe in a well-known location, rather than being updated and then having to be somewhat public because it's in the Garrett, especially when that might contain passwords and other such things.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, they are as part of the, they are available publicly. So are you saying that if we can just move some of the parts which are sensitive outside of these repos?
Yeah, or just have the config files. So for example, the Kubernetes, we have a Kubernetes config that if Kubernetes gets reinstalled, we have to take the config file off of the node, put it into the pod configs repo before things continue to work. Whereas if it was just stored in a well-known location, or maybe the global system Kubernetes location, that would be useful. Also, the definition that sets the description of IP addresses for the OLT and ONU and those sorts of things. If that could be local on the system, would that be something reasonable? Basically, I'm wondering if there's still a lot of value that I'm missing from what's in the pod configs repo.
Nothing regarding, I mean, that's a good point because yes, definitely there is some little sensitive information, but most of the parts which we are putting on Jenkins, sometimes we make sure that it's available through different locations, right? Which are connected to ONF Jenkins. But I think that's a point that we can think about. If we want to store the passwords and some of the sensitive information onto a local repository, or on the machines itself, and have a way to access them, that's good. I do prefer that as well personally. and that way we are not filling out all those details and then just putting them on the repo.
Okay. I think we could probably transition this if we want to move in that direction by just having maybe for the Jenkins tests, checking for the presence of a directory or a file. And then if that file doesn't exist, we check out the podconfigs repo. And then once we make the transition, we just those files are present, and so it then doesn't do the checkout. Maybe that's a good way to do the transition.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I think somebody can take this and then try to investigate and then see if we are able to do it, even the build, because we need to access the build job also needs to access to these details.
right. Okay. That sounds good. I'll get with maybe I'll make a Jira ticket for this, and I'll run this by everyone and see if that'll be a good solution.
Okay, thanks, Zach. So I put your name on that.
Okay, will do.
Yeah, I'll edit it later, but right now I just put an action for you.
And if there's no Jira ticket for the Berlin configuration pod, I'll create one. If there is one, just make sure to assign it to me, so I'll do it as soon as I can when I get there.
Okay, sure, Andrea. I thought there was one, but I can check after the meeting and then see if it's there. Otherwise, you can create one.
Sure, thanks.
Andy, do you know if there was one ticket around Berlin?
Yeah, I think there is, and I think it might be assigned to me. So, yeah, I can look for that, and I'll assign it to you, Andrea.
Thanks, Andy. And I'll maybe ping you offline. What's the state of that if you have already started?
Yep, definitely. We'll sync up.
Okay. Okay, any other items before we move on? Okay, so moving on, the next one is the test case updates and enhancements. I think the first item that I put in here is tagging the test cases with released so that we can pull the tests in the night in the nightly jobs accordingly. This is the one which I was talking about. Andy and myself, we discussed about this and yesterday, and we made the changes and released them. So last night we have these jobs that are running with the released images. They are taking the released tagged based test cases and then they are running, and all other test cases will continue as is. So just make sure that you're not removing this word released when you see on the test cases, and tagging the tests with the released and non-released. Andy and myself will take care of those. And so the general tagging procedure, what we had, just reiterating it again, for tagging the test cases, we are usually giving a test case ID as a tag, and also we are mentioning what kind of suite it is, like a functional or like a sanity or a SOAK or something like that. So most of them fall under the category of functional. So just continue with that. And I've also seen that we are also putting the Jira tickets towards it. So let's just have those Jira tickets as well. And regarding the test case ID, please make sure that they are very short, and please don't give any longer names where it is difficult to manage. And also do not exceed the number of tags that we are putting on the test cases, so that to avoid confusion. So if there is any need to add any new category, then please do let us know, and we can discuss it during one of the meetings, and then apply those guidelines accordingly. So any questions regarding the tagging? Okay, sounds good. So the other one, this is more of restructuring the existing format of files that we have right now. Currently, most of the test cases are going under Voltha pod test dot robot file, if you notice, because that's the main functional test suite that is available for us. So it's becoming longer and longer, and it's not, and the managing is also getting difficult. And another problem that I see is that when there are multiple patches which are going into the same file, then we have more number of clashes. Um, we have to keep rebasing the patches, and then we need to make sure that we are not overlapping few things here and there, and we have to keep waiting before we merge onto the same file. So I was thinking that, and also another problem is the functional scenarios get longer and longer. So as we continue adding more test cases, that file gets longer. So it's a good way to split that particular functional scenarios into various categories, because right now we have container restart test cases in there. We have failure-based scenarios like rebooting, restarting, those kind of test cases there. We have error scenarios also coming up, which are going into the same file, and the functional, which are the core, where we are doing the actual functionality of the the enable, disable, the actual pings and DHCP and all those tests, which are actual functional code test cases, which are going into the same file. And scale, we have a different file, which is good. So I was proposing, I was thinking that let's split the existing test suite into these kind of categories, where we have a restart scenarios and error scenarios, failure-based scenarios, and functional into 4 different files. And for scale, we already have a different file. That way, it's easy to manage for any changes, and also we don't have a problem of overlapping with each other. So for that to happen, there is one important task that needs to be investigated, which is that for any of the restart or error scenarios, as an example, what we do is we always call the sanity test. So let's say when we are rebooting an ONU, we make sure that we are calling the sanity test again, and make sure that we are able to authenticate DHCP ping. Likewise, for restarting a particular container, we are doing the same thing, and make sure that we are repeating the scenarios of authentication DHCP on those ONUs. So having this in a separate file, the sanity test, and then let's say restarting containers is a different file, we need to have a way to call the sanity test from one file to another file. So I already created a keyword keyword for sanity test, where it does the actual sanity functionality job with authentication, DHCP, and things. So I'm thinking that we should be able to call that in different files. But there are a lot of dependencies with for the sanity test itself. So this is something we have never tried. And when I was reading online, I noticed that robot doesn't have a capability of calling one test case into another test case. So we need to write some keywords in a keyword-based manner, even the dependencies for the sanity test, so that we are able to call this onto a different file. So that's the proposal. So this is one of the investigations that we need to do, and if this works, then I'm thinking that the having to split into various categories is a good approach. Any comments, suggestions in regards to this item?
Who's planning on doing this work?
I just put question mark if there is anyone who can volunteer, take it, or I can try it and then do this. I can split this, but we definitely need somebody to take this particular way of calling the sanity test from a different robot test case file. I know that Hangwei was trying it some time back. I'm not sure if Hangwei is on the call today.
He is not.
Okay. All right.
Let's inquire. I'm not. I know that he's still working remotely and isn't going to be back in the office until next week. So let's see if he has the cycles for it. I'm not sure at this point.
Yeah, sure. I can check with him, and then I'll check with Hung Wei, and then see how we can proceed with this activity. But I definitely do feel a need to split this existing file into multiple. I mean, we are logically splitting all. I mean, not logically. Sorry. So we are splitting it based on categories. So I hope everyone is fine with this approach for splitting the tests around to multiple different robot files.
I think that's a good idea. Just because it'll be, it's easier to then start a new file, and you know, the tests might be more discreetly grouped.
Okay. All right, so I'll just leave this item as is until we come up with some resolution, and then we keep following up on this action item. Yes.
Sujitra Gayatri here.
Hi, Gayatri.
So, we'll try to help on this, Sujitra.
Oh, that's
this
nice.
scientist got from different files.
Okay, that's
We'll
great.
let you know.
That's great. So should I can check with Hung Wei first, and then let's see if there was any progress. If not, then definitely reach out to you.
Yeah, sure, Sujitra.
Yeah, thanks for your help. Okay. All right, any other items? That's the last item on the agenda. Yeah. Any other items that we want to discuss today? All right, sounds like no. And again, as a action for everyone, like before, please keep updating the sheet with the new test case IDs also here once you're done automating it, and we can keep track of those. Okay. No other items, then we can call it off.
All right. Talk to you.
All right. Thanks everyone.
Bye.
Talk to you again next week.